Hello everyone, I thought I'd do a video on my thoughts about the aftermath of the Trump assassination attempt that happened on the 30th of July. I'm doing it because, you know, if you know me by now, every now and again, if it's something big in current affairs, I'll try and make sense of it, and I'll put a video out. It's kind of a bit of a personal historical record of the of the circumstance of the event. So here I am talking a little bit about the Trump assassination attempt. Let's just say a few words about how Trump came on my radar, and I think this is mirrored across most people really, is that most of us had heard of Trump. I'm talking about people in the UK, that is, and outside of the USA. Most of us had heard of Trump. We know that he was the host of the Apprentice on TV, and it's only when he entered the 2016 presidential election that we kind of stood up or sat up and took notice and thought this guy is so brazen. He's really going for it. He's going for the top job. And up until that point in time, casual watchers of American politics look back on the Clinton years as being, fairly standard, charismatic, intelligent leader. You put aside his shenanigans. I did not have relations with that woman. You put that stuff aside. You kind of think, well, he represented the United States on the world stage with authority and credibility, and thought, well, Clinton, smart guy and all that business. Anyway, Hillary came into the 2016 election, and we thought, well, lawyer background, clever. I know people were pretty hostile to her, a certain section, but everyone thought she was going to win and thought that she came from the Clinton clan, if you like, and that she would do another half-decent job of being president of the United States. Then Trump came along and upset the apple cart. Started going after Hillary in the debates, but again, against all odds, even on the day of the election, against all odds, Trump won the election. And it was like the media's darling Hillary had been somehow cheated out of becoming the first woman president of the United States. Anyway, 5 minutes went by, seemingly like 5 minutes went by, and suddenly the knives were out for Trump. There was the Russian collusion hoax. There was the drinking bleach stuff that came along in 2020. The Vine people hoax. But there was just a deluge of anti-Trump opinion that was coming out of our legacy media, and us humans, most of our opinions just are assigned to us by the influencers and the media that we consume. There's not a lot of critical thinking going on, and most of us, most of the time, we jump on the bandwagon. We kind of gauge what that opinion is. Where does that fit in with the opinions of other people in our social networks and work networks? And we kind of think, okay, that seems to be the view. I'll more or less go along with that. And of course, that was evident in the pandemic as well, is that people kind of followed the leader and those in authority who were saying, this is what it is, this is how we should respond, and so on and so forth. And it's fair to say that over the years, although I've been pretty ambivalent about Trump, and if I had a vote in the 2024 election, I don't think he would get my vote ordinarily. But anyway, that's by the by. I don't get a vote; it doesn't really matter. But certainly with these opinions that have kind of been assigned to us, I found that almost everybody, almost but not quite, almost everybody in my network, including political anoraks and other more casual observers, were very anti-Trump. And the smart ones were saying things like Trump was, he's not equipped to do that sort of that job. He hasn't got the attention to detail. Um, he's kind of a businessman. He's overstepped the line. He's not worthy of becoming president. And I get that argument to a degree, but more importantly, I think the bulk of the people that I've known over the years who've expressed an opinion of Trump, and everyone's got an opinion on Trump, are that he's a bad man, and that he's a misogynist, he's a liar, he's a cheat, he is just a terrible human being, and that. And dare I say it, because everybody else thinks that way, I'm going to think that way as well. And I know people who are as, let's just say, very unsophisticated in their political opinion. And there's a spectrum. Not everyone takes an interest, but people who are very, very unsophisticated nevertheless have strong opinions about Trump. And that's always really perplexed me. And I think, well, why do you feel so emotionally attached to this hostility to somebody you've never met, you'll never meet, you don't understand his politics, but somehow you've been told by the media and others that you're on the wrong side of history and so on. So I've always been a bit perplexed by that. But what happened on July the 13th was of historical importance, and there isn't a week that goes by that we don't hear about the JFK assassination and then RFK. And, there are sort of conspiracy theories about all of that, but you've now got very senior politicians now openly talking about the JFK assassination being an inside job. And it's become more or less accepted that not everything we've learned in relation to that assassination is necessarily true, the official narrative, that is. And this assassination attempt, and of course there was one on Ronald Reagan in 1981, unsuccessful, but we now get to this situation in that's just happened, and Trump is such a figure that it would be the next thing to the JFK assassination had he been taken out. And society is a lot more volatile now. We've seen that with riots, and people are in bad shape now, with inflation. The economic situation is very, very bad. AI and robotics are slowly and then eliminating jobs, and that'll continue slowly until it happens all at once. And many, many people are going to lose their livelihoods. And of course, that's when the economy breaks down. Society itself, civilization itself starts being the very fabric starts being attacked, because if people haven't got jobs, they've got no disposable income. And if there's no disposable income, there are no tax revenues coming in to fund health services and everything else for that matter. So the whole fabric of our society will start to erode. So it's of a real historical importance. And when I add to the opinions that people have about Trump, that there's some more extreme views of people that I know who say he's the new version of Hitler, he's a fascist. You've had media assaulting him since 2016, and even since he was due to fade out into history after losing the 2020 election. We thought they'd kind of lay off, but they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing that he's a threat to democracy, and he's an authoritarian, and you add all of that to his narcissism and his misogyny and so on. You kind of think people have been gunning for him for a long time, pardon the pun, and he has a lot of enemies, and there's a lot of people who, people like I know, people like you know, who kind of think they don't like him, and that's fair enough. But there are people within power who are threatened by him, and especially threatened by him getting a second term as president. That they're in positions of real power and influence, and they don't really want to let that happen. And so, when it happened, a friend of mine referred to Occam's razor, which is basically the principle that the most likely reason for something happening is probably the true thing. So when you distill everything down as what is the most likely thing that's created this thing, this event, that's probably close to the truth. And of course the argument, the narrative since the assassination attempt has been that it's been a lone gunman that evaded security and fired off 8 shots, as it were. But there is such a hostility towards Trump from institutions and people with great power that I think there's an equally good argument saying from an Occam's razor perspective is that there are enough people had it in for him that maybe the most likely scenario is not a 20-year-old evading security, but that there was somehow some sort of a plot to let it happen, or let these sort of things happen, or even worse, make it happen. But one of the things that I've been doing over the last 3 weeks is trying to consume as much as I can, because I'm just interested in this sort of stuff. So the FBI report is it's got a 60-day timeline before findings are going to be made public, and in the meantime, there's no real official narrative to argue against. And so what you've got citizen journalists, and you've got other experts in the fields of security, ballistics, politics, and so on, kind of filling that gap with their theories. And there's a deluge of data and evidence that's coming into a number of people who are putting together kind of a citizen's report on what happened, and you got to wonder why the government the authorities, as it were, are letting this happen instead of coming out and saying, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, this is where our next area of investigation is going to concentrate on. They're just blanking almost everything, and so evidence is being gathered by people from mobile phones and such like, and stories are beginning to emerge that there may have been a second shooter, but that looks a bit sketchy as a theory. There's different auditory footprints of the gunshots, that the first 3 shots sound a bit different to the next 5, and so on. So these people are still gathering evidence. But one of the things that really has perplexed me is the willingness of people who are hostile to Trump to say that it was a setup, that it was all part of the Trump plan, which is absolutely absurd. No one can do it with that sort of precision, and so that's kind of died a death. People are saying, oh yeah, people who've got no idea, who get their news from the main broadcasters in the UK and say, oh yeah, it's this lone shooter, 20-year-old mentally deranged sort of person. Yeah, you're so sure about that? But anyway, you've got others within that saying, it's a shame he missed, better luck next time, and the world would be a better place if he wasn't around. Which, when you think that there are people we know, and there'll be people that you know, will be on, say, one half of the country are supporters of Trump, the other half are they support the other guy, or now gal, with Harris. Amazingly, in the aftermath of the Trump assassination attempt, Biden's been sidelined, Harris has been promoted, and so on and so forth. But you've got these people on both sides, and there's some people amongst us who think that it's acceptable that your political opposition, or the people that you don't like, or your political enemy, as it were, it's kind of legit that there's they can have a target placed on their back, which I find is just incredible. I mean, I just grew up with this notion that there'd be a competition, an election every 4 or 5 years, and you'd look at the candidates and you would vote. Sadly, most people vote on tribal lines, but some people would think, well, okay, what's on offer? What's being proposed? Let's make a more rational decision than an emotional tribal one. But I thought, every 4 or 5 years, there'd be a winner and a loser, and that the losers would, tip their hat and say, okay, better luck next time, do the best you can on behalf of the country, and we'll fight again in 4 or 5 years' time. But that's not where we are. There's these two groupings, and I've heard it described as people who are ideologues versus the pragmatists. There seems to be less and less of an overlap of these people, and to a point where all that matters is that our side wins. And to hear people talk so blithely about, well, presidents are targeted for assassination all the time, and it's just one of those things. I just think, if that had happened, if that had been successful, and you've seen the riots in the United States over recent years, and in Europe as well, and you think, if they actually took out a prospective presidential candidate that kind of, if you like, represents 50% of the population, how the hell does society come together after that in the current day, 2024? Whether that would be hostilities on the street, I don't know, but you would hope not. But you think, how does a society, how does a country come together after something like that, when there are people out there, people who have been, and very, very important people who said, we should put Trump in put a target on his back or use a bullet and this, that, and the other. It just does my head in, if you pardon the pun of that as well. So, yeah, I'm disturbed by the whole thing. I honestly believe there's going to be another attempt. I think there are people who are in great positions of authority who are very, very fearful of Trump winning, and this time actually going after what he terms the swamp. I've even heard that some people in the security apparatus in America are even thinking of leaving the country if Trump gets in, because they'll be specifically targeted for criminal behavior. So it really worries me. I think there's going to be another attempt. I worry that it might be successful. I worry about what will happen. I worry about how the country then comes together afterwards. And as I keep saying to the friends of mine who talk about this stuff with me from time to time, I say, what's the worst that can happen? 4 more years of a politician you don't like. That's it. 4 more years. It'll be over in a flash. But no, it's imperative that he doesn't get his foot over the threshold of the White House ever again. And that disturbs me. It perplexes me. And I'm really worried about what's going to happen going forward. So that's. I just wish that people would try and be a bit more rational, try and be a bit more balanced in their opinion. Just become a bit more self-aware when they're being tribal, and if they are determined to win on behalf of their tribe, that there is there's more than a smidgen of graciousness, that the other contenders are worthy of some respect for putting their hat into the ring. But emotions run so high with this guy. There's some people out there are absolutely unhinged, and some of them are unhinged enough to do something physical. And anyway, that's just what I think about it right now. let's hope my sense of foreboding is unwarranted and everything will go off well. And even if he does win, that the country will begin to settle down again and think, okay, 4 more years, shrug the shoulders, let's see what we can do next time around. But I'm not hopeful. I hope you've got more hope than I have. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye for now.